My sister called a family meeting. She didn't ask. She didn't suggest. She summoned me like I was an employee, not her older sister. The text just said, Sunday, 2 p.m., be there. No explanation. I walked into her living room with my stomach in knots. Her husband Marcus was already seated, legs crossed, holding a pen like he was about to pitch a business deal. My mother sat beside him, quiet, small. Not quite there, but still here. I took the chair across from them, the kind of chair that makes you sit up straight, and then Vivica dropped it. "We've decided to put Mom in a home," she said. "You'll pay for it." No build-up, no apology, just a sharp sentence like a slap. I blinked. I looked at my mom, my mother, the woman who raised us alone after Dad died, the one who used to work 2 jobs just so we could have clean clothes and lunches we weren't embarrassed to pull out at school. I looked at her, waiting for her to object, to say, "No, this isn't what I want," to say anything. But she didn't say a word. She stared down into her cup of tea like it held the answers to questions she'd stopped asking. Her hands were folded neatly in her lap. She didn't even glance at me. I waited for the rage. I waited for the breakdown. I waited for my voice to rise and tell them no, that this wasn't right, but none of that happened. I swallowed hard. I nodded once, and I said, "Okay." Then I paid, quietly, every month, without fail. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my son. I didn't even tell myself how much it hurt. I just paid and kept the world from cracking open any further. And 6 months later, out of nowhere, a letter arrived from my mother. I opened it on my lunch break, sitting alone in my car. Her handwriting was shaky but familiar. I read the first line and my heart stopped. What she wrote changed everything. And the letter and everything it cracked open, my life was not easy, but familiar. I'm Lena. I teach 11th grade English at the local high school, the kind of school where the windows are always either stuck shut or stuck open, and where I know half the kids' stories better than their own parents do. I grade essays late into the night. I make spaghetti 4 times a week because it's cheap and fast, and I stretch paychecks like a magician stretches scarves. I live in a small 2-bedroom house with my teenage son, Jace, and until recently, my mother. My mom, Yvonne, moved in 3 years ago after her second fall. Nothing major, just a sprained wrist and bruised hip, but enough to start the conversation. At the time, it wasn't even a question. "Come stay with us, Mom," I'd said. "We'll figure it out." Because that's what family does, right? She said yes, but part of her didn't want to. I could see it in the way she brought just one suitcase, like she was just visiting, like she didn't want to take up space, like she didn't want to be a burden. Back then, she was still sharp, funny, even. She'd sit with Jace at the kitchen table and tell stories about her childhood in Georgia, how her mother used to hang laundry outside and hum old hymns, how she once beat 2 boys in marbles and made them cry. Jace would laugh until he snorted. He adored her, still does. But slowly, things shifted. She got quieter. She'd forget simple words mid-sentence or leave the stove on. I brushed it off at first. Everyone has off days. But when I found her trying to warm up soup by placing the can directly on the burner, I knew it was more than just age. There were doctor visits, memory tests, the slow, bureaucratic drip of diagnosis, early-stage dementia, the kind that comes like a tide, creeping in so gently that by the time you realize you're drowning, it's already at your neck. I took on more. I set reminders for her medications. I left sticky notes all over the house. Light switch, closet, your room. I bought one of those pill organizers and started waking up half an hour earlier to get her dressed before school drop-off. Vivica didn't visit much. She called once a week, maybe twice if guilt bit hard enough. She lives across town in a spotless 3-story condo with her husband, Marcus, who manages hedge funds or something I've never really understood. They don't have kids. She says she's career-focused, which is fine. But that distance, it grew. When we did talk, it was always practical, cold. Have you checked for adult daycare centers? You need to look into assisted living while she still has options. Never. How are you holding up, Lena? Never once. But I held on. I thought if I just kept going, kept holding it all together, eventually it would balance out. That maybe my mother would have a few good years left, that Vivica would come around, that Jace wouldn't feel like he was losing two people at once, his grandmother and his mother, to the constant grind of caregiving. Jace never complained. He's 17, a little awkward, brilliant in the way kids are when they don't realize they're rare. He'd sit with my mom and play old Motown records, even when she couldn't remember the names of the songs. Once I walked in on him brushing her hair and humming My Girl. He just smiled and said, "She asked me to. She said it used to calm her down." There were beautiful moments, quiet ones, and even in the hard days I never regretted saying yes. But I was tired, so tired. The kind of tired that seeps into your bones, that makes your coffee cold before you can drink it. And I kept telling myself I was strong enough to carry it all, that I didn't need help, that love meant never saying no. And then the meeting happened, and my mother said nothing, and I began to wonder if love had anything to do with any of this at all. The Sunday my sister called that meeting, I already knew something was coming. The air around Vivica had changed. Her texts had gone from distant to clipped. "We need to talk," she'd written. "It's time we figure this out." No warmth, no "how are you," just strategy. So when I walked into her home, the kind of place with white walls, straight lines, and zero clutter, I braced myself. But I still wasn't prepared for what she said. "We've decided to put Mom in a home." Just like that. No warning, no softness, no questions. And then the second part hit like a punch to the chest. "You'll pay for it." It felt like the ground dropped out from under me. I glanced at Marcus. He didn't say a word, just nodded like some emotionless board member signing off on a budget cut. I turned to Mom. She was sitting quietly on the couch, purse in her lap like she was at a doctor's office. Her eyes weren't focused on anything. They looked tired, yes, but also distant. Like she wasn't in the room at all. "Mom?" I said, my voice barely holding steady. "Is this what you want?" She didn't look at me. She didn't say anything. Vivica didn't wait. She launched into details. The facility she'd toured, the payment plan, the availability, how this is for the best. And when she said, "You live with her. It's only fair you handle the costs," I swear the air in the room got thinner. Fair. That word tasted like rust in my mouth. I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout that this wasn't how family worked, that you don't just shove someone into a place and wipe your hands clean because they no longer fit the image of comfort and convenience. But I didn't. I sat there, stunned, swallowing 1,000 thoughts that I couldn't say fast enough. Instead, I said, "Okay," and I paid. That week, we packed up Mom's things. Well, I did. Vivica didn't show. She sent movers. I found myself folding the same scarves my mom used to tie around her head in the 90s, the ones I'd teased her about. I held her old perfume bottle in my hand and cried in the hallway where she used to hum in the mornings. Jace didn't understand. "Why can't Grandma stay?" he asked me, eyes wide with worry. I didn't know how to explain the politics of siblings, of guilt, of being the one who's always expected to carry the weight. So I just told him what mothers tell their children when the truth is too complicated. She needs more help than I can give right now. The facility was fine, clean, quiet. The walls were beige, the staff polite. Mom didn't complain, but she didn't smile much either. I visited every weekend bringing her favorite cookies and books, even though she barely touched them. Jace came with me sometimes. He'd hold her hand and tell her about school like she still remembered his schedule. I watched him grow more careful with his words, like he didn't want to upset her. Like he knew he was losing her inch by inch. The bills were relentless. I had to cancel Jace's summer camp. I stopped going to my therapist. I took on evening tutoring for kids who hated Shakespeare and fought through dinner prep with bleary eyes and sore feet. And through it all, Vivica didn't check in once. We stopped speaking entirely, actually. She didn't ask how Mom was doing. She didn't ask how I was doing. As far as I could tell, she'd erased the whole situation from her life. Sometimes I stared at my ceiling late at night and wondered, had I failed somehow? Had I done something to make Mom stop trusting me? Why didn't she speak up? Why didn't she say anything? And yet every time I visited, she greeted me with a faint smile, like she knew I'd come but didn't know why. The silence between us felt heavier than words ever could. I started to question everything, my role in the family, my relationship with my mother. the meaning of loyalty, of sacrifice. I kept waiting for something, anything to change, for her to call and say she wanted to come home, for Vivica to apologize, for a sign that this wasn't how the story would end. But the days kept passing, until one afternoon, 6 months after the meeting, I opened my mailbox and found a letter with my mother's handwriting on the envelope. It was trembling, almost illegible, but it was hers. And for the first time in months, I felt something shift. It came on a Thursday. A plain white envelope, no return address, but I knew that handwriting. I would have recognized it anywhere. Those loopy curves, the way she used to write every letter like it might be read by someone important. It was from my mother. I stood in my driveway for a long time, just staring at it. My groceries were still in the back seat. I could hear the neighbor's dog barking in the distance, but the world felt muted, like everything had tilted slightly. I didn't open it right away. I set it on the kitchen counter next to the unpaid gas bill and Jace's report card. I kept glancing at it like it might disappear if I didn't act fast enough. My hands shook when I finally slid my finger beneath the flap. Inside was a folded sheet of lined paper. No card, no preamble, just my mother's words, shaky but deliberate. "Lena," it began. I didn't say anything at the meeting because I was ashamed. Not of you, but of myself. "Vivica told me you were tired of me, that you were saying things behind my back, that I was too much and you didn't know how to tell me." I sank into a chair, the letter trembling in my hands. "She told me you'd had enough, that you were staying silent because you didn't want to hurt me, that you were planning to send me away anyway, so I didn't fight it. I didn't want to become a burden you couldn't carry. I didn't want to be the reason you broke." My throat went dry. I blinked, trying to hold back the sting behind my eyes. She believed Vivica. That was the part that hurt the most, not the lie itself, but that Mom thought, even for a second, that I could abandon her, that I could be the kind of daughter who'd smile in her face while planning her exit behind closed doors. And yet, hadn't I stayed silent too? I had let them put her in that home. I had let her go without asking her what she really wanted. I had followed the current instead of swimming against it, because I was tired, because I was scared, because it was easier to keep the peace than to speak the truth. But reading her words, seeing how twisted everything had become, it woke something up in me. I read the rest of the letter in silence. "Jace came to visit, on his own. He told me about the nights you stayed up crying, about how you stopped going out, stopped buying things for yourself, how you gave up everything to make sure I was okay. He told me the truth." I could picture it so clearly. Jace sitting beside her, probably fidgeting with the hem of his hoodie, telling her things I never said out loud, things I didn't know he even noticed. "I'm sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I let someone else speak for me. I should have known better. I should have remembered the kind of daughter you've always been." The letter ended with something I didn't expect, a postscript written in a smaller script near the bottom. "There's something I want you to have. Key and an address. Go there. It's yours now." Attached was a small silver key taped to the corner of the page, and beneath it, a location written in black ink, a town about 45 minutes outside the city. I recognized the name but couldn't place why. The next morning, I asked for a half-day off work. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not Jace, not my boss. I just drove. I followed winding roads and faded highway signs until I reached the edge of a wooded area. The address led me to a small gravel driveway, and at the end of it stood a modest one-story cabin with green shutters and ivy crawling up one side. It wasn't fancy. The paint was peeling, and the porch creaked when I stepped on it. But it was quiet, peaceful. I unlocked the door. Inside were dust-covered furniture, a faded quilt over a couch, and a photograph of me and Jace on the mantel, one I hadn't seen in years. My heart caught in my throat. She'd kept this place all this time, and now she was giving it to me. I sat on the edge of the old couch, the letter still clutched in my hand. For the first time in months, I didn't feel stuck. I didn't feel like a victim of everyone else's decisions. For the first time, I felt like I had a choice again. I sat in the cabin for over an hour without moving. The air smelled like cedar and dust. A pile of old magazines was stacked neatly on a small end table. There was no television, just a radio with a missing knob and a bookshelf full of weathered novels. Some I recognized from my childhood. My mother had been coming here for years, I realized. Maybe to escape, maybe to breathe. And she never told us. There was a calm here that I hadn't felt in a long, long time. It was the kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything of you. And after months of noise, of bills, arguments, silence, and heartbreak, that stillness felt like a gift. I found a folder tucked inside a drawer in the bedroom. My name was written across it in my mother's handwriting. Inside were property papers, the deed. She'd transferred ownership of the cabin to me 6 months earlier, the same week she was admitted to the care home. I should have felt grateful, honored. But all I felt at first was anger. Anger that she hadn't told me, that she'd hidden something so meaningful from me, that she hadn't trusted me enough to explain. But then I saw the letter again. The way she wrote, "I'm sorry I doubted you." The way she said Vivica had told her lies. Whispers that I was tired of her, that I was pushing her away. My stomach turned. Vivica. Everything came rushing back at once. The way she spoke at that meeting, like it was already decided. Like my opinion didn't matter. The way she never looked me in the eye when she said, "You'll pay for it." I had accepted her words like they were law, like I didn't have a voice. But now, with my mother's truth in my hands and this place surrounding me like a quiet embrace, I knew better. I had been manipulated. Not just my mother, me too. Vivica had orchestrated the entire thing. And for what? Control? Money? A clean conscience? That night, I drove home in silence. My hands were tight around the wheel and my jaw ached from clenching it. But underneath the anger was clarity. My mom didn't choose that silence. It was forced on her, and it was time to give her voice back. The next morning, I drove straight to the care facility. I didn't call ahead. I didn't tell Vivica. I walked in through the front doors, nodded at the nurse behind the counter, and headed down the hall to room 114. My mom was sitting by the window in her chair, looking out at a bare patch of lawn. Her hair was thinner than I remembered, but she was dressed in one of the sweaters I'd brought her, light blue, soft. When she saw me, her face lit up, just barely. "Lena," she said. It came out fragile, but it was there. My name. Her voice. I sat down beside her. "I got your letter," I said. She nodded slowly. Her eyes were wet. "Why didn't you tell me about the cabin?" I asked gently. She smiled, just a flicker. "Didn't know if I'd be brave enough to send the key." "But you did." "I had to. After Jace came, I realized how much I'd gotten wrong. I let your sister fill my head with things I shouldn't have believed. I thought I was doing what was best. I didn't want to be a burden." "You weren't," I whispered. "You never were." She looked at me for a long time. "I want to come home." Something inside me broke and healed at the same time. I took her hand and said, "Then we'll bring you home." I spent the next 2 weeks making arrangements, hiring a part-time caregiver, converting our living room into a bedroom with easy access, contacting a legal advocate about Vivica's role in the financial decisions. I didn't tell Vivica anything, not until the moving van pulled up in front of the care facility and I texted her one photo, Mom standing beside me, smiling, no caption, just truth. Vivica didn't respond. But that wasn't the part that mattered anymore. What mattered was that my mother finally saw the truth, that the silence between us had been filled, not with more silence, but with understanding, and something that sounded a lot like forgiveness. She came home, not just to my house, to me. It's been 4 months since my mother came home. Her room isn't fancy. It's where our dining area used to be. The table's now in the corner of the kitchen, half squeezed against the fridge, but we make it work. Her bed is near the window so she can see the street, and every morning she watches people walk their dogs, kids ride their bikes, the mail truck pull up at noon. It's not much, but to her, it's the world. She's calmer now, still forgetful, still frail. But something in her eyes has returned, like she's not waiting for life to end anymore, just trying to live inside what's left of it. Jace reads to her in the evenings. They've started the secret garden, which is fitting. Every time I pass by and hear him say, "And the secret garden bloomed and bloomed, and every morning revealed new miracles," my throat tightens. She listens like she's hearing it for the first time. Every time. Sometimes she falls asleep before the chapter ends, and Jace just bookmarks the page and kisses her forehead. I see now what I couldn't let myself feel before. That love doesn't always look like grand gestures or perfect plans. Sometimes it looks like brushing someone's hair, like repeating the same answer 20 times in a day without losing patience, like making the decision to show up again and again, even when you're exhausted. The cabin is still there, still ours. I haven't decided what to do with it yet. Some weekends, I take Jace out there, and we clean up little by little. We started calling it Quiet House. He brings his sketchbook, and I bring a notebook I haven't written in for years. We don't talk much while we're there, but somehow we always leave feeling lighter. As for Vivica, we haven't spoken. She sent one email, short and cold. "I hope you know what you're doing." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I finally understood something. Some people mistake control for love. They think being decisive means being right. That cleaning up a situation means cutting out the messiest parts, even if that part is a person. Vivica made her choice, and so did I. It's strange how betrayal doesn't always look like screaming matches or slam doors. Sometimes it's someone standing quietly beside you, pretending they're helping, while they quietly rewrite the story behind your back. For months, I carried guilt I didn't earn, and silence I didn't choose. But my mother and I, we were the ones who had something real left to rebuild. The letter she wrote me. It didn't just change how I saw her. It changed how I saw myself. For so long, I'd believed I had to earn love by suffering. That being the strong one meant never asking for help, never speaking up, never falling apart. But love isn't supposed to be a punishment. It's not supposed to leave you depleted and ashamed. It's supposed to bring you home. And that's what this journey became. Not about where my mother would live, but what home really meant. It wasn't 4 beige walls and a monthly bill. It wasn't silence. And it definitely wasn't sacrifice without purpose. It was warmth. It was forgiveness. It was rediscovering the quiet bond between a mother and daughter after it had been stretched too far for too long. It was hearing my name on her lips again. Sometimes I still think about what might have happened if she hadn't sent that letter, if Jace hadn't visited her and told her the truth, if she'd gone the rest of her life believing I didn't want her. That thought haunts me, and it reminds me, say what matters while people are still listening. Because the silence between us nearly became permanent. But love, even wounded love, has a way of finding its voice again, if you're brave enough to open the envelope. So this is what I've learned, what I want you to hear. Family doesn't guarantee love, and love doesn't mean surrender. Speak up, show up, and when someone gives you a second chance to do right by them, take it, even if it's hard, especially when it's hard. You never know what kind of healing lives on the other side of one honest letter. If this story moved you or made you think about your own family in a different way, please give this video a like. It helps more people find it, and it tells me these stories matter to you too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever experienced something similar? A family decision that didn't feel fair? Or a moment where silence spoke louder than words? Leave a comment. I read every single one, and your stories matter here. And if you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. This is a space for real, honest stories, and I'd love to have you as part of this growing community. Thank you for watching. Take care of your heart and the people who live in it.